Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One PodVader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the Thursday Night Football Preview edition of the Next Fan Up podcast. Hey everybody, PodVader here. I will be back at the end of the show to give you some of my thoughts on this particular matchup between the Indianapolis Colts and the Tennessee Titans. But what you're really here for is to hear from the superfans themselves, and we have a very active Titans superfan, Jordan, who was kind enough to not only do his side of the preview, but also do the Colts side of the preview. Now, I say that to let you know you should probably take his breakdown of the Colts with a little bit of a grain of salt, but I will say Jordan does a very fair job of giving the Colts their due where their due is due. Did I just say doo-doo? In any case, here's Jordan.
Hello and welcome to the game preview for the Week 10 Titans vs. Colts Thursday night AFC South showdown for control of the division. I'm Jordan, your Titans superfan, and I'm here to break it all down and perhaps give a little bit of a state of the union for these teams as we head into the midpoint of the season. So, let me do my best PodVader impression, and here we go. So I'll start with the Colts. A lot of people, I think, don't really know what to make of the Colts so far this season. You know, are they kind of an underrated team going under the radar, or are they just bad? I think the Colts have not gotten a lot of national attention, and I think I'm here to shed some light on that. So, first of all, the reason I think most people don't talk about the Colts much is because they have kind of weak skill position players. They don't have much fantasy players. You know, their quarterback, Phillip Rivers, has been getting hated on this podcast since the day he signed with the Colts, or I guess since well before that, really. T.Y. Hilton has been hurt out of the lineup a lot. They have a bunch of other young receivers that not many people have heard of. Even their draft pick at running back, Jonathan Taylor, has been kind of a disappointment. But the reason I think the Colts are better than people think they are, and really a solid team that is always going to be hard to play against, is because they might be one of the only teams in the league to have both a top 5 offensive line and a top 5 defensive line. And, you know, they always say that that's, you know, how you should construct your NFL team is inside out. You know, they always say football is won in the trenches, and that's what the Colts have. They have a very strong offensive line. They have a very strong defensive line. So no matter who else they have out there, they are going to be tough to beat. They're going to be annoying to play against for that fact alone. Now, I talked about Phillip Rivers. I think so far, everybody who was bashing on him preseason is kind of, you know, they have not been proven wrong. But I think this is sort of a situation like the Bears have with, you know, everybody's saying how bad Mitch Trubisky is, and then they bring in Nick Foles, and it turns out he's not the answer either. I think this is the same thing. You know, if they took out Phillip Rivers, put in Jacoby Brissett, I don't think they would really be any better off. So I don't think the quarterback of the future is on this team, and I think that's why they are sticking with the experience that Phillip Rivers gives them. Now, I will say, I think that going back to the preseason, you know, I was the one on here saying that I was much more worried about the Colts than I was the Texans in this division, that I thought the Colts were going to be a much stronger threat to this division. I think, obviously, that I was proven right on that one, as the Texans are 2-6 right now. But the Colts, you know, they've been a solid little team. They win the games they're supposed to win. They've been losing the games they're supposed to lose so far. They're going to be tested with the remaining portion of their schedule. Is going to get a lot harder for them. But one thing people also probably don't realize is that they are the top-ranked defense going solely by yards per game. So they allow only 290 yards a game to opposing offenses, and that's 290 total yards per game, not just 290 pass yards. So that's pretty insane. Their defense is schemed in a way that they don't get beat deep. They like to keep everything in front of them. And as I already mentioned, on offense, they have such a good O-line. They like to run the ball. They like to control time of possession if they can. So it's hard to do too much when you're attacking their defense because generally most teams don't even have the ball that much in the first place. And when they do, they can't take deep shots. And, they also have to compete with the Colts' really good defensive line. So that's kind of where the Colts stand right now. I think they are tied at 5-3 for the wild card spot in the AFC. Of course, they're only one game behind the Titans for the division. And if they won this game, that would put them in control in first place because they'd have the tiebreak as well. So there's a good chance you see this team in the playoffs, really regardless of how good they end up being because 7 teams make the playoffs now. So let me go to the Titans, where I'll start with their offense. Their offense has been cruising this year, despite the fact that, we gave contracts to Ryan Tannehill, to Derrick Henry this offseason. Everybody said that was a mistake. I think those people have been thoroughly proven wrong at this point. We've been cruising despite having a much weaker offensive line than usual after the loss of Taylor Lewan, who's out for the season. The Titans actually have a bottom 10 pass blocking offensive line this year, at least according to how the ESPN calculates that statistic, whatever that really means. And yet the Titans are number 2 in pass offense in DVOA. So that tells you right there just how good Ryan Tannehill has been playing and that he's had a weaker offensive line. We know it's been a revolving door at receiver. A.J. Brown has missed time. Actually, the entire receiving corps has missed time at some point or another because almost all of them got COVID at some point. Adam Humphries is hurt and is not going to play this game. So to have the number 2 offense in pass DVOA is quite impressive. And everyone on the Tannehill is going to regress bandwagon. I think they all have to take an L on that one because that regression just has not happened. I think Ryan Tannehill has established himself that no matter who we're playing, we've played the Bears and the Steelers, 2 of the best defenses in the league, and, he's done just fine. And against bad defenses, he's been running up the score on them. So I think he's pretty established as a solid guy that we can win with. And I think at this point, if you look at the Titans team as a whole, the offense is not the issue. Part of the reason we've been able to disguise those offensive line issues is really because of the scheme that Arthur Smith is running, that's our offensive coordinator. He's really able to kind of disguise and hide the weaknesses on the O-line by doing some pre-snap movement and by just the design of his plays. And I actually don't want to give him too much credit because there are some whispers that he will be a big head coach candidate next year, so I don't really want to give him any more attention than he needs. So we can just keep him as our little secret there. Let's talk about the Titans defense because this is really what's been the problem so far. And there's no mistake that it's been absolutely horrible so far. We have the dead last in third down conversion percentage. That means we're allowing third down conversions at the highest rate out of anyone. It is not good enough to win a Super Bowl. Let me just tell you that. Now, I have not been panicking too much on this because we have not had Adoree Jackson, our top cornerback, the whole season. Dating back to last year where he also missed a lot of time, just the splits between the Titans defense with Adoree versus without Adoree is night and day. So in my mind, I've just been like, okay, I don't even know how we're winning all these games without Adoree Jackson, but once he comes back, that's going to be fine. Well, 3 weeks ago, he was activated from IR, which means he has 3 weeks to return from IR to be activated in the lineup, or else he's out for the season. That means he has until the Titans have until this recording to activate Adoree Jackson, or he's out for the season. So, of course, they do have the option of activating him, but still scratching him on Thursday. But Mike Vrabel has not given us much of any indication of really what is happening with Adoree Jackson. Titans fans all over really have no idea because Mike Vrabel won't give us any information. So if there's no Adoree Jackson, I just don't know what the ceiling of this team is. And that's mostly because the Kansas City Chiefs exist. And I don't know how we can cover the Kansas City passing game without Adoree Jackson. One thing we did do was we made a trade for Desmond King from the Chargers, and that drastically improved our defense last week. Of course, I don't want to get too high off what we did last week because that was against the Chicago Bears, who are probably one of the worst offenses in the NFL. So, but still, Desmond King, a big addition for us. I think that Clowney should be back for this game as well. The Titans also tried to kind of trim the fat on defense a little bit. We cut Vic Beasley, who was a big signing in the offseason, because he was just a ghost out there. You know, I watched games and you would never see or hear from Vic Beasley. He was just irrelevant. We also cut Jonathan Joseph, who was the opposite of a ghost, because teams used to just target him on every single play, probably because he's 36 years old and his best days are behind him. So we're trying to turn this defense around. We still have Christian Fulton, our rookie cornerback, on IR. So we have no Christian Fulton, no Adoree in this game. So that leaves us basically with Desmond King and Malcolm Butler, and the corners after that are not too pretty. You know, we used somebody named Breon Borders, who we called up from the practice squad last week, and he got a lot of playing time. So that's what our secondary is looking like. And of course, we have been struggling to get sacks, but I think our defensive line and defensive pressure has actually, for once, been better than people think it is. It's just been hurt by the complete lack of a secondary. And it doesn't matter how fast you get to the quarterback. If your corners can't cover for 2 seconds, they're getting the ball out right away. That's what happened when we played the Bengals, and Joe Burrow was just making plays everywhere. So basically where I am with the Titans is the offense is absolutely Super Bowl caliber. They've been able to score on any defense so far. They've been able, honestly, we went to a 5-0 start, I think, and people were finally giving the Titans credit, which is rare, but we were doing that despite having an absolutely horrible defense. So that just tells you how good the offense is, and it's just going to be a matter of if the defense can be healthy, because we haven't had one game yet with the full defense healthy. And I still think that we could be a Super Bowl contender if the defense can be healthy. You know, I'm not too worried how the defense looks in week 9. I'm more worried how they're going to look in the first round of the playoffs. So I'm kind of withholding judgment until we see the full defense. But for now, it's not pretty. I do think the Desmond King acquisition is going to help. But until we get Adoree and Fulton back, you know, it's not great. People are using fantasy players against the Titans as they should, because everybody's getting stats. So let's talk about this matchup on Thursday night. Because this, I think a lot of people wouldn't realize the Colts are only one game back from the Titans in the standings. The Colts do have a loss in the division to the Jaguars back in week 1, which is big for the tiebreak. So the Titans won, they'd be 2 games up, and they'd have the tiebreak over the Colts should they end up splitting the season series. So, you know, they'd be in a huge, huge position to win the division for the first time in a long time with a win Thursday night. And the Titans do have a very bad history against the Colts. Generally, I always say nothing good happens when we play the Colts. We always disappoint somehow against them. But this is a whole new cast of characters for the Colts. Almost all their skill position players on offense have probably never even played against the Titans before, so we don't know what to expect too much. One advantage I would point out is that the main issue everyone says with Phillip Rivers is he throws a lot of interceptions. And that's the one good thing the Titans have done on defense. They actually have the best turnover differential in the NFL. They have a +10 turnover differential. And that's really the only way they've been surviving on defense, because they have not been forcing punts. And that actually should tell you how bad the defense is, because getting all these turnovers has really made these issues look better than they actually are, because the turnovers are such a big play. Without the turnovers, we would probably be in contention for one of the worst defenses in the league so far. But I think that is something we can capitalize against Phillip Rivers on Thursday. I would say the key matchup to watch, and I know that our superfan Neil is going to like this one, is going to be, if you are a fan of the trenches, you're going to want to watch the matchup between Quinton Nelson and Jeffrey Simmons. Just look for numbers 56 and number 98, because those are 2 of the very best at their position. A lot of people consider Quinton Nelson to be the best guard in the NFL, and Jeffrey Simmons is already on his way to being one of the best defensive tackles in the NFL. So if nothing else, if you just watch those two, you will be entertained. All right, I think we're about ready for my prediction of this game here. I think it's going to be kind of a low to mid-scoring game. Both teams, I think it's going to be a bit of a slog, honestly. But looking at the rest of the slate in Week 10, this might end up being one of the more compelling matchups of the week. I think it's going to be really close. I think it's going to be back and forth. I'm going to predict the Titans win, but only like 21-20. I think this really goes back and forth. And of course, the Titans have had huge kicker issues, so that's never good when you're in a close game. So that's my preview for this game. We've got to beat the Colts here. It's huge. And, these two teams are going to be facing again in 2 weeks. So if you like to watch AFC South matchups, which hardly anyone does, you're forced into it this week, and you can watch a rematch of it 2 weeks from now.
Thank you, Jordan. I mean, the way that I see this matchup is these two teams are fairly equal, with maybe the Titans being just a little bit better in a few of the areas. One of those areas, points for and against. The Titans score 29 points per game, allow 25.1. The Colts score 26 points per game, allow 20. On offense, the Titans get 384.5 yards per game. The Colts get 360.5. On defense, the Colts are back to number one in the league in yards allowed, allowing 290 a game. The Titans allow 394, so that's a whole football field more, which you would assume is a whole touchdown more, but here it's really only 5 points per game. Colts have won 3 of the past 4. The Titans won their last matchup, which was in December of last year, 31-17. Ryan Tannehill, his magic number is 2. He just likes throwing 2 touchdowns. He is aiming for his third in a row versus Indianapolis with 2+ touchdown passes and no interceptions. He does have 19 touchdowns, 18 passing, 1 rushing, only 1 pick in his past 6 games at home. He's also on a streak of passing for 2 touchdowns. Let's see here. He has passed for at least 2 touchdowns in 7 of 8 games this season, and it marked his 16th game with at least 2 passing touchdowns since the beginning of 2019, which trails only Russell Wilson, who's done so in 18 games for the most such games in the NFL over that span. So, 2. Remember, Ryan Tannehill's good for 2 touchdowns on Thursday night. A.J. Brown also, by the way, is on a particular streak. He has a receiving touchdown in 5 consecutive games, which is the second longest active streak in the league right now. And Jonnu Smith has 6 touchdown catches, and that is tied for the most among tight ends currently. Desmond King already paying back dividends on that trade with a 63-yard fumble return touchdown in his debut last week with Tennessee. The Colts, well, Phillip Rivers seems to be going back to the Phillip Rivers of old. It is old man Rivers, but he's definitely back to shot putting. His weapons on the offensive side of the ball are definitely missing. They're hurt. So the Colts right now are struggling a little bit, sort of limping in here to the second half of the season. That doesn't mean that they're out of anything. It just means in this particular game, I got to lean towards the Tennessee Titans. Now, this is a Thursday night game, which means all of that can be thrown out the window. It's also an inter-division game, so you can throw all of that out the window. And you can easily see the Colts standing victorious at the end of this game. I am still going to take the Tennessee Titans, who are favored by Las Vegas by 2 points at home, which actually means Indy is closer to the favorite than Tennessee is. It should be a good game. At the very least, we are in for a good competitive matchup on Thursday night. And what more could you ask for? quite honestly, is good football on a Thursday night. Nextfanup@gmail.com. We've got a couple emails, which we're going to read on tomorrow's, our Thursday preview of all of the Week 10 action. So nextfanup@gmail.com if you want to get in on some of that. At NFU Podcast is a great place to tweet us on Twitter or on Facebook, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. You can get all of our stuff there, all of our podcasts, the recipes from Doc, and another great place to continue the conversation beyond just listening to us on the podcast. Hey, tell a friend. You can subscribe or listen to this show wherever podcasts are heard. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Pandora, etc., etc., etc. We are everywhere, so there's no reason not to listen to Next Fan Up. We'll be back again tomorrow with the full Week 10 preview. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together. And through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remained true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.